There is a plant that pulls nitrogen from thin air and deposits it directly into soil. For 800 years, it saved European civilization from starvation and made poor farmers wealthy. Then, the chemical industry spent billions convincing the world that synthetic fertilizer was superior. Why did they wage war on nature's free fertilizer factory? By 1600, European farmland was dying. Centuries of grain cultivation had stripped soils of nitrogen. Harvests collapsed across the continent. Famine stalked from Ireland to Poland. Then, farmers rediscovered an ancient secret growing in their pastures. A simple, three-leafed plant that could resurrect dead soil without external inputs. Welcome to Buried Yield. If these records matter, subscribe and enable notifications. This is clover, Trifolium species, the nitrogen thief that changed agricultural history. Its roots host colonies of rhizobia bacteria that capture atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into plant-available compounds. While other crops drain soil nutrients, it manufactures fertilizer continuously. 1 acre produces 150 pounds of nitrogen annually. That equals $200 worth of synthetic fertilizer today. Medieval monasteries cultivated it deliberately in 3-field rotation systems. Monks understood that land planted with this crop produced abundant grain harvests the following season. They called it the soil healer, though they didn't understand the bacterial chemistry. The agricultural revolution of the 1600s was built on this plant. Dutch farmers developed rotation systems integrating it with grain production. English landowners promoted it as the foundation of profitable farming. Fields that once yielded 8 bushels of wheat per acre suddenly produced 25 bushels after growing this crop. Irish peasants relied on it during the potato famine of the 1840s. While potato crops rotted, families gathered its leaves and flowers for survival. The plant grew wild in abandoned fields where other crops had failed. American colonists brought it across the Atlantic. George Washington grew it at Mount Vernon. Thomas Jefferson experimented with varieties at Monticello. By the 1800s, American farmers considered it essential for sustainable agriculture. The plant required no cultivation, fertilizer, or pesticides. It grew in poor soils where other crops struggled. It survived droughts that killed grain harvests. It reseeded itself naturally, returning year after year without replanting. This was agricultural insurance that cost nothing. But this abundance threatened emerging industrial interests. A crop that manufactured its own fertilizer could not generate recurring sales. Farmers who achieved soil fertility naturally had no need for purchased inputs. Agricultural independence was bad for business. The destruction began with synthetic nitrogen fertilizer development. In 1909, Fritz Haber invented a process to synthesize ammonia from atmospheric nitrogen. By 1913, Carl Bosch had scaled it to industrial production. The Haber-Bosch process could create nitrogen fertilizer using massive amounts of fossil fuel energy. Chemical companies saw enormous profit potential. They could sell farmers what this plant provided freely. They needed only to convince agriculture that synthetic fertilizer was superior to biological nitrogen fixation. By 1920, aggressive marketing campaigns promoted synthetic fertilizer as modern scientific agriculture. Agricultural colleges received funding to research chemical approaches. Extension services taught farmers to view biological systems as primitive and unreliable. The messaging emphasized convenience and predictability. Synthetic fertilizer could be applied precisely when needed. It didn't require rotating crops or reducing planted acreage. It allowed continuous grain production without fertility breaks. Government policies reinforced chemical dependency. Agricultural subsidies favored grain monocultures over diverse rotations. Crop insurance covered synthetic inputs, but not biological soil improvement. Tax structures rewarded annual planting over long-term soil health. By 1950, most American farms had abandoned rotation systems that included nitrogen-fixing plants. Traditional knowledge about biological fertility was labeled outdated. Agricultural education focused exclusively on chemical solutions. The environmental consequences became evident by the 1970s. Soil organic matter declined across industrial farmland. Water pollution from synthetic fertilizer runoff created dead zones in rivers. The energy required for fertilizer production contributed significantly to greenhouse gas emissions. Meanwhile, clover continued fixing nitrogen in abandoned pastures and roadside ditches. It required no fossil fuel inputs, created no water pollution, and actually improved soil health. But agricultural systems had been restructured around chemical dependence. Modern research confirms what traditional farmers always knew. Studies show biological nitrogen fixation provides more stable soil fertility than synthetic fertilizer. The nitrogen is released gradually throughout the growing season, rather than sudden pulses that damage plants and pollute water. American farmers now spend over $12 billion annually on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. Much of this expense could be eliminated by returning to rotation systems that include nitrogen-fixing plants. European farmers are rediscovering its value as environmental regulations restrict synthetic fertilizer use. Organic producers never abandoned it, maintaining traditional rotation systems that build soil fertility naturally. The plant that saved European civilization from starvation now grows wild in unused corners of industrial farms. It continues fixing nitrogen in abandoned lots and highway margins. It offers the same gifts to soil that sustained agriculture for 8 centuries. But agricultural systems remain structured around chemical dependency. Universities teach synthetic approaches while ignoring biological alternatives. Farmers continue purchasing expensive fertilizer while free nitrogen fixation happens in their fence rows. The suppression of clover represents how traditional abundance can be replaced with profitable scarcity. It shows how biological independence can be destroyed to create industrial dependency. The plant that ended European famine still grows beside every farm field. Its roots still host bacteria that manufacture fertilizer continuously. It still offers soil fertility without environmental damage or recurring costs. That generosity is exactly why it had to be replaced with chemicals. If this changed how you see plants, history, or power, subscribe to Buried Yield. The next record opens soon.